Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Masked Monologues. I'm your host, AA Girl, and today I have with me Tai Goodwin. Would you like to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about what you do, and why you got started?
I am Tai Goodwin. I am CEO of the Good Wealth Group, and I specialize in helping visionaries, trailblazers, leaders, creative entrepreneurs, and experts getting more visibility for their brand and position themselves as thought leaders so they can create a bigger impact and income. And I got started in this space because I was trying to build a coaching business and I didn't know how to actually get an audience. And I ended up leveraging things like quizzes and social media to build my email list and to build my business into a multiple six-figure company. And I decided to teach my clients how to do the same thing.
That's wonderful. I just want to ask a little bit about how specifically you help leaders and entrepreneurs build their businesses. What facets does your company explore?
So we focus on strategic visibility. That's the name of it, is what we call it.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people out there that focus on, I'm going to be visible. I want to have more Facebook followers and more people on Instagram following me. And that can be helpful. But my question always goes back to, is that where your audience really is? Because it
Mhm.
makes absolutely no sense for you to build a following on Instagram if your audience, and by audience, people that will actually buy from you, is not on Instagram. So you have to be really strategic. And so for us, that strategic visibility really focuses on using a lot of organic things like SEO and content marketing. We also focus on building lead generation funnels like quizzes. This is our
Mhm.
favorite way and our fastest way to generate leads. And then the other thing that we do for folks is help them get booked on podcasts. That's one of our
Mm.
favorite ways to build our audiences is by sharing and delivering value on podcasts as guests. And that helps us grow our visibility and our reach.
Okay, so I'm a little curious. I've never heard of generating leads with quizzes. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So about 7 years ago, that's when I had my last day job. And I knew that when I left that day job, I needed an audience. I needed people to sell to. And I was back then, I was coaching. And so I sent out a link to my email list that said, hey, I've got this new quiz. Actually, let me clarify. I didn't actually have an active email list. I had a list of names that I hadn't talked to in about 2.5 years. And so it was about 2,500 people that were on that list. And I sent them an email saying, I'm starting my coaching business back up. If you're interested, take this quiz to learn more about the services that I offer. And the quiz was about what type of entrepreneur are you? And they took the quiz and they got this output that says, hey, maybe you should be a coach, or maybe you should be the expert, or maybe you should be the behind the scenes person.
Mhm.
Because what I realized and knew was that a lot of my clients who wanted to start a business, everybody was telling them they had to be a coach.
Yes.
And that's so not true. And so they were really frustrated trying to mold themselves into the shape of a coach when they really wanted to be a speaker or an author,
Mhm.
or they really were meant to do consulting work, or they really were meant to be behind the scenes doing the hands-on work in the business. And
Yes.
so this quiz allowed them to identify with, hey, maybe you don't have to be a coach. Maybe you should be the person that's on the stage speaking and teaching and leading.
Yes.
When people got that information, it was such value. It was of such value to them
Mhm.
because it was like, oh my gosh, now I know something I did not know before.
Mhm.
And that was our first quiz. And since then, we've gone on to build several quizzes across all different kinds of niches. For example, one of our quizzes was from a doctor. She's an OB. And the quiz that we helped her create, or we created for her, was called Where Did My O Go?
Mhm.
And it was all about a quiz for women who had lost their libido. We just finished another quiz with one of our clients who is she works in voodoo and hoodoo, and the quiz that we helped her create was what's your goddess origin story?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
delivering value to people and pulling them in is one of the best ways to generate leads, and a quiz is the fastest way that we found to do that.
And you were talking about the different type of entrepreneurs. Can you elaborate on that and how you would create a marketing strategy or a business strategy tailored towards their entrepreneurial style?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really broad question. So, because between business strategy and marketing strategy are
Mhm.
totally two different things. Business strategy is really around your business model. How are you going to make money? How are you going to deliver your services to people? That's a whole different strategy and conversation as
Mhm.
opposed to marketing, which is how are you going to take what your business model is and get it in front of people? And there's a lot of different tactics that you can use, but the strategy is around doing the research and the data. And that's for both sides, business and marketing. A
Mhm.
lot of people skip over it and they think that I can just say I'm going to be a digital products creator and I'm just going to make these things, or I'm going to sell something on Etsy because I really like certain things and I
Yes.
want to buy them, so I'm just going to make them for Etsy. And when I come back in and say, who is the audience that you're selling for,
Mm.
and how much are you charging? Because how much you charge has a direct impact on the revenue and the profit that you create. So it's not just something I feel comfortable charging $9 for something. If it costs you $8.50 to make it, you're only making 50 cents on
Yes.
everything that you create. So that's the business strategy. You got to know numbers.
Mhm.
You got to know all those things that might feel unsexy, especially if you're creative, right? And
Yes.
I'm a creative too. I'd say all the time, I wish I could blink my eyes like I dream of Genie and make all my stuff happen. But the reality is I've got to know the numbers. Like, how much is it costing me? And cost is not just about the money. How much time is it taking me? Because that's something we don't always feel like I'll just do it for free because I can do it myself. And like, that's great. But if it costs you 20 hours to get something done, when you could have paid somebody and got it done in two, you've
Yes.
just lost 8 hours worth of time.
No, it's wonderful factoring in that time component because especially creatives, you start a craft, you get lost in it, and then, oh, 2 days, 3 days, a week has gone by and it's taken you that long, and you want to be properly compensated for your work. I am
Yeah.
wondering about, you were saying with the marketing and the business aspect of running a business. You were talking about business management, business strategy, and marketing strategy. Does your company concentrate on both of those, or do you have a strong suit?
We focus on the marketing side of things. When I
Okay.
work with clients, I like them to already know their numbers. And I know there are people that do both sides of it, but I
Hmm.
don't want to play in that stream. So you've got to come to us knowing your numbers. So when I ask the question, like, what are your revenue goals for the next 60, 90 days? Or for the next year, you've got to know. Or let's talk about your pricing model. What is the cost and what is the profit that you're trying to make for everything that you sell? You've got to know those numbers because then
Hmm.
that's going to help us figure out what your marketing is. Another question that people don't always think about is what's your marketing budget? And they say, I don't know. Are being able to spend $100 a month on marketing is very different than a person that says, I'm going to be able to spend $5,000 on marketing.
Yes.
And people don't think about that. But I always say this, especially if you're somebody that says that you want to do things like Facebook ads, you're competing with people that are spending tens of thousands of dollars a month sometimes. And if you're coming in saying I only have $100, you've got to realize that some of your ads are going to be on the back or that are just
Hmm.
not going to get seen because of who you're competing with. Now, on the other side of that, people will say, I don't need to do ads. I want to do everything organic. I'm like, that's
Hmm.
totally fine. But that means you're going to be spending a lot of time. And
Yes.
people will constantly say, I did my 30 minutes of social media for the day.
Mhm.
Well, that doesn't work. Well, you're going to do social media until you get a client. Like people make me laugh when they tell me I don't have time for marketing and they also don't have clients. If you don't have
Right.
clients, what the hell is your time? Like you
Mhm.
have no clients. So you definitely have to have time for marketing or you are definitely going to find yourself having time for a nine to
Mhm.
five job.
Yes. And you're saying that one method you need to invest more time, the other method you're obviously going to invest more money. Do you use a combination of the two for most of your clients, or are there some clients who want to do mainly everything organic, and which one has a better payoff, or does it depend on the type of company, the type of business the person is running?
You're absolutely right in it depending on the person or the type of business that you're running. For example, if you have a low ticket offer, let's say you're selling a product and your product is $9.99 or $24.95,
Mhm.
take you a lot more sales and a lot more people to get to a $10,000 month.
Yes.
You're selling something that's a $1,000 or a $2,500 offer. You don't need thousands of people because you can get to $10,000. If you've got a $1,000 product, you only need 10 people. If you've got a $10 product, right, how
Yes.
many people do you get to that $10,000? Now you need a
Mhm.
hundred sales, right? Or is it 1,000? I
Right.
can't remember my numbers right now.
Mhm.
But you need a lot of people to get that. And so if you're trying to do a small ticket offer, but then you're only talking to 100 people a week, you're never going to hit those numbers, right? You're
Yes.
never going to hit those numbers and you're struggling. And I
Mm.
see people not realizing that all the time. For
Mhm.
example, I just went to this client who has a product based business. And she was like, I'm doing all this organic outreach and I'm posting on Facebook and people aren't responding to my post. And
Yes.
we took a look at actual stats. So if
Mhm.
you're on Facebook, one of the things you can do, if you turn on the professional dashboard and
Mhm.
you can Google how to do that to find out, it will actually show you how many people have actually seen your content. She was astounded. In fact, I talked to her. We took a look at this a week ago, and then she came back on the next session and she was like, I'm still blown away
Mm.
because what she realized was that Facebook was not showing her content to people. So it wasn't that her content was bad. It wasn't that people weren't interested. People weren't seeing it. And folks don't realize that, especially if you're selling a product based business and you've got an e-com,
Yes.
people will think, I've got 100 people that came to my website. Do you know on average, the average amount of traffic that e-commerce websites need is in the thousands? So if
Uh,
you're only getting 100 people, you're never going to make your sales.
and I'm wondering, you can have a lot of impressions, a lot of views, but have you noticed that there's any tactics people can use to increase their conversion rates? Because obviously you can have products up on your e-commerce website, you can be selling a service or whatever you're selling, but if you do not execute the listing properly or you don't execute the ad properly, then your conversion rate may waver depending on how it appeals to your audience. What tactics have you found work for your clients or just in general for entrepreneurs?
Great question. Build your email list. It
Mm.
is very rare, unless you're selling something that I need like right now and I'm familiar with your brand, right? It's very rare that I'm going to buy from you right now. So, for example, if you're somebody that creates like beauty products, do you know how many beauty products there are out on the market that do what you do? And so, if I just came across your product today, I may not buy it today because I haven't read reviews. I don't really know. I'm not really sure if I trust you yet. I haven't seen any like before and
Mhm.
after pictures. And I'm still feeling you out. So if I come to your website and look at it and be like, oh, that was interesting, but you don't capture my name and email address, you will never even know I was there.
Mm.
And you'll never be able to follow up with me. And the best marketers and the best and most successful entrepreneurs, what they do is they will make sure they have a way to capture that name and email address so
Mm.
that even if you leave my site and you do not buy today, I'm going to send you an email that says, hey, I saw you looking at X, Y, and Z product, or hey there, looks like you were about to check out, but you left this in your shopping cart, or thanks so much for visiting our site. Here's a special coupon code that you need to use in the next 48 hours. But
Mm.
those are the things that you do with follow up. But again, if you just say, come to my website and look at my stuff, I will come, I will look at your stuff, but I'm not going to buy it because I don't trust you yet.
Yes. And with that, you're talking about email marketing, retargeting the audience, the clients that are coming to your site, potential clients. I've noticed that in these days, people get bombarded with emails from stores, especially the big companies, the big names. Is there a way that you can approach email marketing that doesn't irritate your customers or isn't too aggressive?
I'm going to break it to you this way. There's a reason why those big box companies send you so many emails. Now, you have to think about this. If those big box companies, those name brands who have millions of dollars, an entire marketing team, a staff of cops, and advertisements that are on social media and TV and radio and everywhere, if those big brand names are sending you lots of emails, there's a reason they're doing it because it actually works. So, here's the reality. If people are irritated by your emails, they're not going to buy your product anyway. They were never going to buy your product. I'll give you a case in point. I don't sell a lot of low ticket offers, but I've had people that have been on my email list for a year and a half and then they'll book a call with me. And I remember there was this one woman, she'd been on my email list for a while. She finally booked a call. And because of our emails, our email marketing system, our CM, I could actually see that she'd been on my list for 9 months. She attended a webinar like in August. Actually, it was longer than that, but she attended an email in August of the year before, and
Mm.
now it was December of the entire next year. And she
Yes.
was just about to call. And she
Mhm.
said, oh, yeah, I've been on your list for a while. I love your content. It's amazing, but I knew we weren't going to be ready to work with you until now.
And
I
would
sent
you
a lot of emails.
Yes. Would you say that some tactic for sending emails would be giving people value in your emails as opposed to just
Oh,
selling a product or just trying to shove the next offer you have in their face?
absolutely. Absolutely. You have to deliver value. You have to make it fun. You have to make it engaging, but absolutely you want to deliver value.
And so I also want to ask, depending on the offer, so we were talking about low ticket offers and then offers that go into the thousands. How much more difficult is it to convince somebody to buy a high ticket offer as opposed to a low ticket offer? And how do you approach that? How does that approach vary?
It's not much different in the difficulty because most people that are really willing to make an investment aren't always buying on price.
Yes.
Unless you're targeting like budget shoppers or something like that. But most people aren't making a decision based on price. They're going to buy the best thing that they can to get the solution. You're not, and then for a low ticket offer, if you got to spend a whole bunch of time and energy trying to convince somebody to buy it, it's not worth it because
Yeah.
it's a $9 product. How much
Hmm.
time is it going to take to convince you to buy a $9 product?
Yes.
So if it's difficult for you to do that, but you've got a misalignment of your offer, you've got a misalignment with your audience, and you've got a misalignment with your messaging. If you get those two
Hmm.
things together, it's going to be easy. And it's the same thing on a higher ticket offer side. Choose an audience that's able and willing to pay you. What I see a lot of people do is they'll have a high ticket offer and they're trying to sell it to people who cannot afford to pay them or people who don't have a problem big enough. So for example, there are people that are selling VA services and they're
Hmm.
trying to get people who are creatives to buy VA services. Most creatives don't have the budget to hire a full-time VA. So
Hmm.
you could have amazing services. And even if you were to lower your price to $20 an hour, they're still not going to be able to bring you on full time
Hmm.
because they don't have the need and they don't have the budget.
Yes.
So it really is about creating an alignment between your offer, your messaging, and your audience.
And we're talking a lot about honing into your target audience, just concentrating on them. How do you find your target audience? Is it just primarily through market research, or do you have to go out there and test your products, see who it appeals to? How do you organize characteristics such as age demographics, genders, etc.?
Everything you listed is part of market research. That kind of answers, your question for you. Yes, it's research. And the biggest thing that people overlook is talk to the people you want to sell to. If you say you want to sell to busy moms who are over 30, and I ask you, well, when was the last time you talked to a busy mom who was over 30?
Mm-hmm.
And you tell me you haven't, I'm going to look at you like you've got four eyeballs sprouting out of your head because
Yes.
how do you not talk to the people that you want to sell to and expect to make a sale? Find someone who's a busy mom over 30 and ask them, what are your biggest challenges with this? Or take a look at my product and my offer. Is this something that you would use? And when would you use it? And why would you use it? Or why would you overlook it? But you have to talk to the people that you want to buy. ChatGPT is fantastic, but it's not the same as people. And also, you don't want to just go off of what you see somebody else doing on Facebook. I've seen this all the time. You see somebody selling something on Facebook or Instagram, and you say, oh my gosh, I can do that too. You
Mm-hmm.
have no way of knowing if that person is actually making money. You're
Yes.
guessing and assuming, but you don't know. And you cannot adopt what you see them doing and think that it will work for you without doing research on your own.
And now I want to ask you a couple of tips for, say you're an entrepreneur, you're just starting out, you're going to create a business based on, let's just say, bracelets, and you've never done this before, you have limited resources available to you. What would you say would be your best marketing strategy?
And what were they selling again? Bracelets, you said?
Yes, bracelets.
Who is your audience? Who's buying the bracelets?
Mm.
It's the difference between selling bracelets to women that are in their 20s to selling bracelets to women that are in their 30s. Are you selling it to women who are interested in spirituality? Or are these people that are interested in nature? Like you have to know who your audience is, who you're selling. You cannot simply say, I'm selling bracelets to anybody, any woman who wants a bracelet, because that's not going to work. You've got women who don't wear jewelry. You've
Yes.
got women who are professional and they can't wear the type of jewelry you sell. to them. We had a client the other day, we were just talking about this. She sells body butters, and she'd been trying to sell her body butters to busy moms. One of the recent clients that she actually talked to was somebody who was working in the medical field. They were a home health worker, and they buy her products 6 or 7 at a time. And I'm like, are you realizing what's happening? You keep trying to sell to this one audience who's a hard sell for you. And meanwhile, you've got somebody who's basically telling you, I buy your product 6 or 7 at a time because not only do I use the body butters because I'm washing my hands all the time, my colleagues want it as well.
Yes.
And so the first thing that you're going to do is you have to really know who your audience is. And then you've got to talk to those people and get your offer, get your product in front of them as much as you can.
A lot of it has to do with being attentive to the people who want your product. Would you say that? And how do entrepreneurs overlook these, it seems, just these obvious aspects of their business that might not be apparent to them? Would you say that fresh eyes or working with a company would be highly suggested?
Yeah, absolutely. We spend a lot of time helping people with having a strategy. What's happened is the internet has lowered the barrier of entry to entrepreneurship. And so it makes people think that all I've got to do is have an Instagram account and then I'm going to get sales for my product. And I'm like, okay, got an Instagram account, but actually, how many people are following you on Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
I've got 500 people that are following me on Instagram. That's great. How many of those people actually see your content? I'm not really sure. Okay. How many of those people are actually in your target audience? I have no way of knowing. Okay, great. How many of those people do you actually have the ability to contact? I don't. If they show up on Instagram, maybe they'll see my stuff. So yeah, how's that going to work? The internet has made you believe that just putting something up on Instagram or TikTok or any of these platforms is going to get you sales. But the strategy behind it is you have to have a way to get their email information and their contact information beyond just connecting to them on social media. So you can nurture them from people that are I'm interested in what you're saying and what you're doing to I'm in, meaning I'm going to invest in what you're offering.
Yes. Okay. On that note, I'd like to wrap up this episode. So if you would like to shout out to your website, your social media platforms, and just tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, your listeners can find me on Instagram. They can find me on Facebook or Tai Goodwin. And if they're interested in learning how to use quizzes to build their email list and build their audience fast, they can go to quizandgrowrich.com.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on this podcast. And if you listeners like this episode and you want more episodes like this, please do share it with a friend or a family member. And we look forward to seeing you next time.